and we're talking a little New Mexico politics. We have Jimmy Mason with us. He is candidate for New Mexico House in District 66, and we've been talking off air, and you touched on it earlier in the last segment, Jimmy, is how do we get people motivated to get out to vote in the election? Voter turnout in this country, not just in the last couple of elections, but just overall, has just been so poor.
Yeah, not just New Mexico. I mean, nationwide. It's we're giving up our constitutional right to govern. I mean, it's all the political powers of all the branches of government are vested in and derived from the people in this country through their right to vote. Lots of people in the world would give their eye teeth to have a system anywhere near like what we have.
Right.
And then we don't take advantage of it.
No, we sit back, we don't vote. A lot of complaining going on, but not a lot of voting to go with that. And that seems to be a hallmark, or at least a key point of the campaign literature that you've had out. You've talked a lot about getting out to vote and the Constitution and personal responsibility.
No, that's what it all boils down to. We get to vote your beliefs, vote for like-minded people, but vote. If you don't believe like me, don't vote for me. But if you do, please do. But vote for a candidate that mirrors your personal beliefs in life.
And you can't really go by what the media says. And I think this is part of the frustration, Jimmy, is that a lot of people, wherever it is they get their media, whether it's CNN or Fox, they get kind of a warped perspective of how things really are. It's going to be a red wave. Now it's not going to be a red wave. The president's making a comeback, or the president's not making a comeback. And so I think that affects people, and they think, well, it just doesn't matter if I vote. They're all going to do the same thing.
And all of this about, our corruption in our election has a lot of people turned off. But, and we have early voting, which is a good thing, because nobody should have an excuse not to vote. You've got 30 days to vote in the United States. I mean, to tell me you don't have 10 minutes somewhere in that 30 days is just not right.
Yeah.
And we still have, of course, and I'm a believer in the absentee ballots, a ballot that you personally have to ask to get.
Right.
We have to have that. If I had my way, we'd go back to just that and vote on election day.
I'm with you there. You bring that up in the legislature, and I'm with you 100% on that. But even if you wanted to compromise with the early voters, maybe have it for a week of early voting, and then it's either early voting in person, absentee that the voter requests, or you vote on election day, and
of course, voter verification, which in New Mexico we have signature verification. So we don't sign when you go in to vote, but you sign, but you don't have to give ID. But supposedly in our deal, when you registered, they have a copy of your signature, and supposedly the computer does a verification of your signature.
Right.
Which I don't know how that works. It's I'm a little questionable on the deal. I just said flop my, if I go over here to Brewer, and I'm not a drinker, but if I wanted to buy a 6-pack of beer, I have to show an ID.
That's right.
So this idea that people cannot show an ID is bull.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, I
just watch them go through one of these convenience stores on a Friday afternoon, and
they're going to figure out a way to get their beer.
Right.
And if they need to do that to vote, and if
maybe that's the way we've energized them all. We give everybody free beer instead of free college.
We'll see how that goes.
Let's don't go there.
I don't think it does that. But you in one of your pieces here, which I've been intrigued by, you have some great folks from American history that you have quotes from. You have quotes from Reverend Charles G. Finney, revivalist in the Second and Third Great Awakening, college president. You've got quotes from Reverend Frederick Douglass, from John Jay, one of the original Chief Justice of the United States of the Supreme Court. Providence has given to our people the choice of their rulers, and it is the duty as well as the privilege and interest of our Christian nation to select and prefer Christians for their rulers. And you touched on this in the last segment. If just the Christian community
Would vote.
registered to vote and then voted, think of the impact that would have on the
Be
results
a
of
great
elections.
impact.
Yeah.
But I still go back, Christian values are mainly what our Constitution gives us. They don't give us a lot of things, but but when we don't vote, we give up that right to control our destiny. And not so much for you yourself. You need to think about what your kids are, people with young kids, these things that they're doing today are going to impact them more than they're going to impact you. And your grandkids we're selling our heritage down the river,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let me ask you this, Jimmy. You get elected, you go up to Santa Fe with all those other...
Weirdos.
That's a good word. That's much better. I can say that one on the radio. But how are your persuasion skills? Because at some point in time, you're going to have to work with some folks from the other side.
Politics always explained to me kind of like trading horses. You've got to, I struggle with it a lot because there's some things I'm going to probably have to vote for that I don't really personally like. But, you've got to give up something to get something. I can't ask Gene to vote for this bill that's big on my agenda, or I can, but he's going to come back and say, well, I can vote for that bill, but can you support me on this?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that's on moral issues, I can't give in to get your vote. But some of the fiscal issues, you're just going to have to suck it up, and do some things, and then try to explain to your constituents when you get home why you did it.
Yeah. No, I understand. But there's some big issues that the state is going to have to face. You've got the critical race theory in the schools issue. You've got the...
That's one of them, I just can't abide by, no matter what they want me to do. Abortion's the one I really struggle with. We're not going to get a ban on abortion. I mean, if we want to get real about it,
Not in New Mexico, no.
No. But, what percentage of the babies it ends up, what percentage of the babies can we save?
Right, exactly, yeah.
The way it is now, they can kill them all if they wanted to.
Right, but can that be pulled back some?
Can we save half of them?
Right.
And then in 2 or 3 or 4 years, if people vote their beliefs, and more people believe against it, as time goes, you can narrow the gap as you go.
Right. What do you think? What do you see as some of the top priorities of the state? What should the state be really focused on? Through legislation that is administered by the governor.
Of course, talking to people around here, and listening to you talk about Artesia football, education is a big thing on most people's mind.
Mm-hmm. And it's a huge percentage of the state budget, too,
right.
is education.
And so that needs to be addressed. Arizona just passed that money following the kid bill, last year. I think it's $6,000 a year, that if you pull your child out of public school and want to put them in a private, you will get funds to help finance that. Which is, I think it was introduced last session, but it never did make it out of committee in New Mexico. But if we have a good turnout of, changing the nature of our house, I think it'll go a lot further. I'm not saying it'll get passed. Personally, I like public schools. And in this area, all of my district, we have basically as good a public schools as there is in the state.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the control of our schools needs to move local. And we don't need the state board telling that you teach this, you teach that. Back to your critical race thing,
Sure.
We need our local school board members to make that decision. And then if they do something we don't like, they're a lot easier to get rid of.
Well, so that would be a big issue that hopefully could be passed, because right now the local school boards are so.
Yeah, they got them tied and
Yeah.
and scared. You know, they're afraid to go against it. I can see their point. You know, they don't. You know, they hold the purse strings out there and dangle them in front of them. You know, you want your money? This is what you do,
Yeah.
which is wrong. I think we ought to. So much. I mean, every school. I mean, there's a formula. You know, the kids enrolled at X day. You know, I don't know the exact deal, but you know, this is
Like
how
the
much
40-day count or something like that. Yeah.
you get this much money. You
Mhm.
know, and then it should be up to our administration. And like I said, then if they don't do what we want them, and I mean that's one deal in my district. I've got Artesia School District, Carlsbad School District, Goddard School District, Tatum School District, and part of Lovington School District. I've got a lot of school districts I have parts of a lot of school districts, and but what I hear, you know, it's a big thing. Of course, security and you know our police and all. I mean that's our Constitution guarantees us protection. So to me, I think we probably waste a lot of money in those areas, and but that is a constitutional right.
Sure.
You know.
Well, I think another issue that's important in this area is the energy sector.
Right. No,
And
it's very big in this area.
It's huge, and it seems like that while the state loves the money that comes from this economy, they're not a big fan of where the money comes from, and there's this huge push for, you know, electric cars at the state level and windmills and solar panels. So how do you convince some of these legislators up north that while maybe that's not a bad idea and maybe we ought to look at doing some of that, let's not do it at the expense of hurting our oil and gas industry?
I agree. You know, the main thing, is a lot of, if we're just going to have to change our leadership if we're going to make many inroads into that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Grisham is, you know, whatever Biden in California does, she's on board.
Right.
You know, but
And California yesterday said they're getting close to
right,
picking
35, there's going to have no.
You can't buy a gas-powered car in California. Yeah. Can you
Right.
buy one in New Mexico and bring it to California? That ought to be a big deal for our local car dealers. You know, we could market to Californians.
Right.
Who still want
It is terrible.
But you're right. Whatever the Newsom does in California or the governor of Oregon does, our governor seems to think, well, that's a good idea. Let's do that. Let's do that here. See if
it's a big deal, and another big deal with me, and into that deal, when we get more control, is our state agencies and the bureaucrats that run these state land office and all the regulatory agencies. You know, to me, it's wrong that a guy, Gene Dow, you're head of whatever, you decide today, well, we need this regulation. So you sit down with your pen and pencil and you write it, and then that becomes the way.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be more business friendly to everyone. It needs to be black and white. If you want to open this business or do this business, this is the rules. You do them, you're good.
Yeah.
End the conversation.
How about some things that maybe are popular in some parts of the state, but they've passed? Is there, for example, the marijuana issue there? I mean, it's out there, right?
It's coming up, and you know, I don't see a way we're going to back out of it. They say the governor of Colorado that was promoting it is now campaigning to do away with it, but we need some. I think we need to pass some laws on the consumption of it. You know, it's as a personal. You know, I wish we didn't have it, but I'm not.
It's there now.
But a lot of people wish there wasn't beer. There,
right.
Alcohol.
Right.
And I think if you smoke a joint, you should suffer the same consequences as the guy that drinks a beer and gets in his car or gets in whatever. I mean, we need an equality in the laws regulating the consumption. It you know, and right now the detection, you know, is hard. I mean, on our police officers, you know, they can smell the smoke probably, but how do they? It's hard to a blood test is the only way, I think, right now. I don't know that much about it, but I'm
Yeah.
looking at it. We're going to have to come up with something that gives our enforcers a leg to stand on where they can enforce
Right.
these regulations.
Because if someone's under the influence of alcohol, there's a process, if you're stopped,
Right.
for
Determining the level of your intoxication.
correct. But
We
that,
need that same thing with the marijuana.
yeah, I don't think that technology
I
is out there
haven't
yet.
seen it. Nobody's been able to tell me that it's there. But,
Yeah.
or they're not. It's not readily available anyway.
Right. But if it was treated the same way as alcohol, then maybe that would help get people who are under the influence off the road, so that before they can
Right.
can cause accidents.
No, I
things like-
mean, it just needs to be a level playing field for everybody.
You know, it's interesting. There's so many people that you hear that say, "Well, you have to pass certain drug tests in order to work."
Right. Now, that's going to be a trick. Now, I mean, because that in itself, I hope, will regulate it to some amount. Now, if you work over here at Navajo,
Mm-hmm.
and today's your day for your random test, and you smoke a joint, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And
So hopefully that'll help.
and
with-
I've always struggled with the idea that this is legal in the state, but it's still federally illegal.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly right. And
And I just can't figure in my little brain how that works.
because the federal government doesn't enforce it, because the federal government is like a lot of governments. There are
Right.
certain things that are on the books that they enforce, and there's certain things that are on the books that apparently they don't enforce.
A lot of them.
A lot of them, and
It's to their whim what they enforce and don't.
yeah, and you would think that wouldn't be the case. It either is legal or it's not, or it's regulated to this level or it's not. One of the things you wanted to talk about, we have the Republican Party has
Right.
has headquarters in Artesia and Carlsbad, and I'm sure
Right.
you encourage folks to
Right,
visit.
yeah, the one here is on Main Street. It's right where it was last year. Was 402 West Main.
Mm-hmm.
They're open.
It's just not up in the front.
Right, no, it's in the back. And Carlsbad is actually opening theirs next week.
Okay.
Next Saturday, the 3rd, will be the grand opening of that one down there. And to get one free plug while I'm on that deal,
Sure.
we're going to have a Get Out the Vote event just at Yum Yum Yogurt, just a few doors down from it. They're in the same location, just right next to each other.
Okay.
So we're going to get out a vote and try to get some people registered to vote. And
Is it in that little shopping center
right
there?
next to Sutherland's?
Next to. Oh, okay. All right. I was thinking it was up on the north side of town, but it's down now by. Okay.
Right.
All right. I know
No,
what you're talking
there's
about.
Sutherland's, and then there's a bow shop and Yum Yum, and now the Republican headquarters. are all
Okay.
in that same deal. Some restaurant, I think, or something there.
There's a Chinese restaurant
Something.
buffet that I think is
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It used to be Golden Corral, I think, back in the day.
Right. Well,
It's not now.
no, they don't have one now.
Yeah.
The only thing I miss worse is First Cafeteria.
You know, that
I love First Cafeteria.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I loved our little cafeteria we used to have here in Artesia, too.
That's right.
It was a perfect place. You wanted a quick lunch,
Mhm.
go in there, this, sit down and eat it out in 15 minutes,
Yeah, we growing up in the Midwest, we had Bishop's Cafeteria was the big chain, and then when we moved out west, it was Furs.
Furs or
And
was it Luby?
Luby's was another big
Big
one
one.
that was around. Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times Bill and Eunice and Gene and Lana would head up to Roswell or the one in Carlsbad and
Yeah.
eat
We'd
at Furs.
We'd nearly always stop at the one in Roswell. If we went up there for something, it was around lunchtime when we'd come back by, you just swing in there. And I love their turnip greens.
Yeah, well,
It's weird. I think
wouldn't-
they made the best turnip greens I've ever eaten.
They probably were good. So so the event. What day is that?
That's September the 3rd, Saturday,
September
a week
3rd.
from this Saturday, a week
Okay.
from tomorrow.
Down in Carlsbad at.
Right.
by-
And Carlsbad has their Republican meeting for Carlsbad next Thursday night, the 1st,
Mhm.
at IHOP down there. So
Okay.
it welcome anybody that. You don't have to be a Republican even to come. You can we'll invite anybody. If they give you problems, just look for me. I'll be there.
That's great. But I think at the end of the day, it sounds like, just in talking with you, and if you like what you stand for and what you want to do, vote for you. But
Right.
I think the real encouragement is
Vote.
let's get people out to vote. How do we do that?
You're right. Now, if anybody out there has a way to energize the population of not just Eddy County or my district, but of anything, if you've got an idea how to energize people to get up and go vote, I'd be glad to listen to them.
Well, we have the free beer idea floating
Right.
around out there.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. But,
I don't think some folks will appreciate that.
No,
so we'll,
no, I don't even know that I'd appreciate it.
Exactly.
But it's, they say in all these events, and Gene will attest to this because he does those remotes and we do one with him every year, food, refreshments are king
Yeah.
on an event. I mean,
Yeah.
if you offer people food, you could get twice as many people there than if you just say, come listen to me talk. They say, yeah, I don't want to go listen to you talk. I sit at the house and watch cartoons better than that.
I enjoy the meal. Now, what do I have to pay for it? You know,
Right.
so we got to listen to me talk for 5 minutes or 10
Right.
minutes. So,
No, they can just leave, too.
well, Jimmy, good to see you.
You bet. No, good to see you, Gene.
I'm sure we'll have you on again before the election.
Well, I hope so. And everybody, if anybody has anything they have questions about, please contact me. You know, I'm at the store most of the time. And I have a Facebook page, Campaign to Elect Jimmy G. Mason. Just go in there and look, and you can see my post. And, you know, I tell everybody, you know what, I believe in God, I believe in country, and I believe in family. You know, that's kind of and that said, the Constitution of New Mexico and the United States. You know, that one close out, I always like this little saying, it's the preamble of the New Mexico Constitution. It says, we the people of New Mexico, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of liberty in order to secure the advantages of a state government, to ordain and establish this Constitution. You know, if we go back to constitutions, all the problems that we talk about will be solved.
That's right. I appreciate. What does G stand for? What's
Glenn.
Glenn. So it's Jimmy Glenn Mason.
Yeah.
Was it Jimmy or James?
No, it's Jimmy.
It is Jimmy. Okay.
Yeah, and Glenn, of course, that's my oldest son's first name.
There you go. Was that like a grandfather or an uncle?
No, the
or?
Jimmy, it was an uncle. My mother's uncle. Only boy in her family was Jimmy.
Okay.
That's where I
And
got
then
it.
Gene comes from, they just thought it sounded good?
Glenn,
Or Glenn, I'm sorry, the Glenn comes from,
I guess. I have no idea. I have no idea.
see, my middle name came after my uncle, or my grandfather on my mother's side. That was my middle name. My
Right.
grandfather on my mother's side was Joseph, so that's where the Joseph comes from. But,
Right.
but also my dad didn't want me to be junior, so I'm the second.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a 2 at the end of mine, not a junior.
Not
so.
a JR.
That's right.
Can't
so.
call you Junior.
Well, you can. I'll
As
answer.
long as they've got food involved, you'll answer.
I'll be there.